You're about to start your Spanish B course, and right now you're probably thinking about your first lessons, your first topics, perhaps even your first assessments. But there is something much more important that you need to understand first. What are you actually developing over the next 2 years of this course? Because Spanish B is not just about learning more Spanish. It is about learning how to use Spanish effectively across different contexts. And it is also about developing your cultural understanding of the Spanish-speaking world, learning to appreciate different cultures and different perspectives. Spanish B is likely to feel familiar in some way. You're going to be learning vocabulary, working with grammar, you will be listening and reading in Spanish, and of course you will be expected to write and speak in Spanish. However, the way these things come together in Spanish B is important. The course is designed as a 2-year journey. You will be developing your language skills, your ability to communicate, but also your understanding of cultures and perspectives, and increasingly your ability to use all of this independently. So before you begin, I want to give you the big picture. What can you expect? What will you be developing? What changes between year 1 and 2? And where is all this taking you? Spanish B, standard level or higher level, is a 2-year course. So it is really worth understanding the structure of your journey. First of all, the course is built around 5 themes prescribed by the IB. En español, estos son identidades, experiencias, ingenio humano, organización social y compartir el planeta. You will explore these themes throughout the 2 years, and the sequence will depend on how your school decides to structure the course. These themes are not simply topics that you work through and leave behind. They provide context for developing your Spanish, and they also give you opportunities to explore ideas, issues, experiences, and perspectives from different cultural contexts within the Spanish-speaking world. So you might begin by discussing something that you're really familiar with, but gradually you are encouraged to look beyond your own experience. So how might this particular issue be understood somewhere else? What might be similar? What might be different? And why might people have different perspectives? And how can you discuss these perspectives in Spanish? That is part of what makes the Spanish B course more than simply a language course. When you look at the structure of Spanish B, don't just think about what topics am I going to study. Think about what will these topics, what will these contexts help me understand and communicate about. And that leads me to the next part of the journey. So you may encounter similar themes, ideas, or types of language that you covered before, but the expectations are different. Think, for instance, about the topic of la vida sana. Early in your studies, the objective would be to answer this question: ¿Qué haces para mantenerte sano? And the expected answer would be something like: practico deporte regularmente y también como muchas frutas y verduras porque son beneficiosas para mi salud. And that in Spanish B would be a useful starting point. But in this course, we will be asking different questions. For instance, si el alcohol es una droga, ¿debería estar prohibido? ¿O hasta qué punto es responsabilidad del individuo mantener un estilo de vida saludable? Now you have to do much more. You need to develop an opinion, your own opinion, and you need to give reasons, consider different perspectives, and also connect it to the Spanish-speaking world. So you need to use your Spanish effectively to communicate what you actually want to say. But there is another layer. You might also need to consider how that question could be understood in different cultural or social contexts in the Spanish-speaking countries. And for that, you'll need to do some research. So are attitudes towards health the same everywhere? You will explore initiatives in different Spanish-speaking countries. Now, you are using your Spanish not simply to say something, but to explore an issue and engage with different perspectives. So as you can see, your Spanish is going to become more effective, your ideas more developed, and your ability to understand different perspectives will become stronger. And that is what progression across the 2 years should look like. By the time you reach year 2, Spanish B should feel different from when you started. And not because you have simply memorized more vocabulary or learned more grammar, but because you can do more with the Spanish that you know. And also because with the wider vocabulary and the wider range of grammatical structures that you have, you will also have more experience expressing and developing your ideas, and you should also feel more confident communicating in different situations. But there is also another very important change, and is that you should be becoming more confident and more comfortable looking beyond your own perspective, understanding different experiences, cultures, and viewpoints, and using Spanish to explore and discuss them. So the question changes. At the beginning of the course, you might be asking, do I know enough Spanish to answer this? But as you progress, the question becomes, can I use the Spanish I know to say what I really mean? And that is the direction of travel throughout the 2 years, because eventually you need to bring all of this together in your final assessments. These are paper 1, which is the writing paper, paper 2, which is divided into the reading and listening papers, and the individual oral. This is important because you should not look at those assessments as the 3 things that you suddenly need to prepare for in year 2. The exam is simply the destination. The skills, you are building them along the 2 years. Every time you read an authentic text, you are learning to understand meaning, ideas, and perspectives in context. Every time you listen to different speakers, you are learning to make sense of Spanish as it is actually used. And every time you write or speak, you are learning to communicate, to develop and to justify your own ideas. And every time you encounter an experience or a way of thinking that is different from your own, you have another opportunity to develop your intercultural understanding. When you eventually sit those final assessments, you are not suddenly being asked to become a capable Spanish user. You are being asked to demonstrate what you have been building for 2 years. And that is why the journey matters. You are not preparing for the exam at the end of year 2. You are building towards it right from the beginning. What should you actually do with all this when you start? You don't need to try to master the whole course now. Instead, I would suggest 4 simple habits. First of all, keep the 2-year journey in mind. It is all about progress. Second, when you learn new vocabulary or new structures, put them to use. Think about what you can say and what you could do with them. Third, when you encounter a text, an issue, or a perspective from the Spanish-speaking world, look beyond the vocabulary. Keep a record of facts. And fourth, notice your progression. None of this requires a huge amount of additional work. It is all about approaching the work you already do differently. Do not measure your progress simply by how much content you've covered. You could complete a theme without necessarily developing your communication skills. You could also memorize hundreds of words without being able to use them effectively. And you could also learn facts about a culture without necessarily developing intercultural understanding. The real question for you is, what can I now do, understand, and communicate that I couldn't before? And that is the bigger picture of Spanish B. As you begin Spanish B, don't worry if there are things that you cannot do yet. Instead, get a sense of where you're going. Over the 2 years, you will move from building your language skills to using Spanish with greater confidence, to expressing and developing your own ideas, and to understanding and discussing different perspectives. Gradually, you will become more independent in how you use Spanish. Here's the one thing I would like you to do before you begin. Look at the whole journey. I know it's hard, but try and think about what you need to start building right now. Because when you understand where you're going, the work you do along the way makes much more sense. If you found this video useful, remember to subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for future videos and resources to help you with your Spanish B journey. Un saludo. Nos vemos.